it's certainly been a really nice provision that we've had over the last couple of months to get to know a little bit more about our elders and the assignments that they have. I think it's helped a lot of the friends understand. The title of our part from last week is Elders Who Slave for the Lord. I remember when I was a ministerial servant years ago, I always wanted to go in the back room and find out what they were talking about. And then I got to go back there and I said, I went out. Because it really is. It's a lot of work, but it's a wonderful work, privilege that we have. And obviously each week, Brother Trimble presides over our watchtower. So we're going to ask him some questions, and we'll pay close attention to his responses.
I think our time is up.
Is it? Oh, well, you know what? We've got a few minutes left. We can squeeze it in. The friends, they want to know, right? They want to know. All right, our first question, what does caring for your assignment involve?
Well, it's more than just getting up here and asking questions. I have to do a lot of personal study, a lot of prayer, meditation, give a lot of thought to the lesson. Try to see how it applies to our local congregation and how we could benefit from it. Certainly, it's quite a privilege that Jehovah's entrusted to me, and the local body of elders have entrusted me with. I really appreciate having that privilege. But along with that, I really have to ask Jehovah to help me focus on the material and not focus on myself. Sometimes I have those inferiority complexes. I feel like I think too much about how I'm appearing. So I have to get that out of my head and completely focus on the information, the spiritual theme, and highlight that.
Very good. How do you go about preparing? What's maybe some specific things that you do?
Personally, what I do is I'll look in the front of the magazine to see the introductory thoughts to help me appreciate the purpose of the lesson, which will always highlight each week in the study. And I go over them personally myself, and then I'll read through the entire lesson. Let me go back. I look at the pictures, subheadings, and the review questions, and then I just read through the lesson without looking at the questions. I just kind of, in a flowing manner, just read through the whole thing. And then I go back, and again, like I mentioned, I do a lot of prayer and ask Jehovah to help me make sure I get the point, that I understand the scriptures they want highlighted. Sometimes the prayer works a lot because I'll read that scripture and I thought, why did they put that in there? And I read it again and I pray about it, and the light comes on. Then I can appreciate why the scripture's there. So I have to dig into that, and a lot of personal thought and meditation. I do it when it's a quiet time. I'll try to go over it earlier before Sunday, and then me personally, I get up early Sunday morning when the house is quiet, and that's when I go over for the final time before the meeting.
Gotcha. Now I've had the privilege of reading before, and I've peeked at your watchtower. I'm saying that up here. I have peeked at it. It's very colorful. It looks like you spend, how much time would you say per week, considering all of the reading and meditating and the actual studying and all the notes that you make? How much time would you say you spend a week on average?
Well, one brother once said, "You spend 6 hours a week doing that, I bet, don't you?" And that's what I'm not quite. But I'll spend a good 2.5 hours anyway, just on preparing that lesson.
Yeah.
And sometimes even longer if it's a difficult lesson.
Yeah, sometimes they're easy in the hands will be free flowing, and then sometimes it's a little challenge. We get intimidated by some of the questions. Why are you not able to, this is a question people want to know, because some friends, when they put their hand up, they want you to call on them. And we can only see your face, you can see all our faces. So why are you not able to call on everyone who raises his or her hand and comment?
Well, sometimes it depends on the part of the lesson. The first part of the lesson is usually an introductory part, and the meat of the lesson gets more toward the back, or as we get into the subheadings. And so we can't really spend a whole lot of time on those as we get into the meatier part. And so sometimes at the introduction, some of the friends want to comment on the earlier paragraphs, which is good, but can't always linger on those paragraphs. We have to move on. But we do like to give everyone an opportunity to comment at the same time.
What if we're in one of those meatier paragraphs towards the back and based on the information in there, you feel it's well covered, but someone else puts their hands up? Does that affect at all maybe not being able to call on someone?
It could, depending on the timing, where we're at time-wise, so we want to still get the review thoughts in and cover those well. But sometimes it's a challenge because, especially when you want to get the younger ones, and some of the friends really desire to comment a lot, and sometimes we just can't. We got a 60-minute limit on the study, and we can't run over too long.
So we all want to know, do you ever not call on us because you don't like us? You don't have to answer that. That wasn't anything meant. That's one of those rhetorical questions. All right, here's another question. How can the reader, those who comment, and the brothers who carry the microphones assist you in making the watchtower beneficial and enjoyable? So let's start with the first one. How can the reader help you?
He can prepare well and make sure he's reading the thoughts are in the paragraph and with emphasis to highlight the main thought. It wouldn't be so good to read a paragraph and slip a "we should do" where it just says "we shouldn't do," just as an example, because that has happened. Just like a tongue-tied thing where someone hasn't prepared well and maybe a little nervous because of that, and read it wrong, and the wrong thought is expressed. Then the congregation is focused on what was read wrong, and that kind of detracts from the thought. So, and the reader, we have good readers, and they do a fine job. They're to be commended. But again, it's the preparation, I think, and reading with the proper emphasis on the points.
So what if we're a really good reader, and we have a lot of, as you mentioned, a lot of really good readers. Sometimes we're going to read the Watchtower, and we look at the board when we come in, oh, that's right, I got the Watchtower. Should we, if we're one that reads really well, should we still prepare ahead of time to read? Like going over the information before we get up here?
Yeah, it'd be good always to be prepared. Preparation is the key for everything on the study.
Great. So how could those who comment make the Watchtower study beneficial and enjoyable?
Now they pointed out, and we're going to get into this, I think, in a moment. They mentioned at our recent school about some of the first comments to a question could be very brief. Could be a one-answer word. Could be Jehovah, the kingdom, whatever. And so that can answer that part of the question, and others can elaborate more on it later. If we stay on track and not get, sometimes we have things that we've experienced or saw on the TV or news or something that we feel might tie in. Sometimes they do quite nicely, and it's fine. But sometimes we can get our mind rambling and we get way out there, and we got to try to come back in where we're focusing on the theme of the thought. And so if we can prepare again, even the friends in the audience, if they prepare well and look at the cited scriptures, they can all be tied in with the lesson.
Very good. What about the brothers who carry the mics? How can they help you?
Well, they could be on their feet as soon as the paragraph's been read. And
you mean they shouldn't wait until after the question's read to turn on their mic?
no.
Just checking. Okay.
And so if the brothers can be ready, again, if we go back to that thought, timing can be a factor. If they're up, and sometimes they keep their eye on me at the same time, see where I'm looking, or just they can generally see the hands. Sometimes they help me out. They may see a hand off to this panoramic auditorium that I don't see, and if they kind of give a motion to me that someone's ready to comment, it helps me a lot that way too.
Very true. One other thing I thought about is got to throw in, especially the way the shape of our hall. It's hard sometimes for the brother on the platform, especially Brother Trimble, to be able to see all the way in the corners. So one suggestion, maybe if you're in the corner, hold your hand up real high. If you need to have your watchtower, we don't need none of that. But you can hold your watchtower up, because if you're sitting in the corner and you're going like this, and then you go, he never calls on me, well, there's probably a reason why. So maybe just hold your hand up. So I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but I just thought you were like this. Last question: how did the recent Kingdom Ministry School help you to better care for this important responsibility?
Well, they went over a lot of good information that can help us to keep the study going well. Like they just suggested that the conductor not do a lot of talking. That's right up my alley. So just a few well-chosen words to introduce the lesson to perhaps arouse interest in it. And they mentioned not to comment. I had to write something down. Again, they want us to concentrate on the theme, not go off on a different area. We don't need to bring in a lot of extra research because that's already been done for us. And so we can highlight on that and focus on the artwork somewhat. They use a little example of not nitpicking a picture to death and picking out, like we had that picture in our study Sunday with the group in the basement. Someone mentioned, and it was a good comment about they having their disaster items in the corner. Well, as a conductor, I wouldn't want to go off and start talking about disaster relief and get off the subject. So they encourage us to just focus on the main part of the picture to help drive home the point that the art department and the photography is highlighting.
Yeah, it was a really nice presentation we had in that school with the video. You know, a lot of friends obviously don't get to see them, but there's a lot of humor used. They did the first part was what not to do. And I just got to put this out there because I appreciate your point about the picture. The brother that was conducting, I forget what the lesson was, but I think it was something about Moses, and he brings up this point in a map that had absolutely nothing to do with the article. And he goes in this diatribe about one of the points on the map, and he Googled it last night, and he found out. I mean, it was absolutely nothing to do with it, and it was kind of funny how the elders laughed. So, and Brother Trimble doesn't do that; he does a very fine job. So, friends, how do we think Brother Trimble does on his assignment? Yes, they seem to like you though. That's good. You did good. All right, get down. All right, very good. We want to thank you for your time being interviewed, and we're going to close our meeting now. And the song that has been selected. What's the song? Oh, it's a new song. Is that right? The new song, "Grant Us Boldness." So we're going to play the music through once, and then the congregation is going to sing the new song. And we're going to ask Brother Faden if he can come down and dismiss us with prayer. Please grant us boldness. So remember, we're going to listen to the first lesson.